Define it for me. Like when we say, "Oh, this website is accessible or is not," what are we actually saying? Well, my favorite is, of course, it's like, "Oh, you know what we should do? Dark gray text on a light gray background." And you know
Yes.
what? We want it to be real sophisticated, so a small, thin, fiddly font should do it. My friends, today on the Unofficial Shopify podcast, we are discussing accessibility. Accessibility is another one of those checklists that you're supposed to pass with your website, right? Like an SEO checklist, a performance checklist, a conversion rate checklist. And now we're at accessibility. Actually, this one's quite important because in doing this for many years, I have, well, completely lost track of the number of times a Shopify store owner has told me, "Hey, we got hit with an accessibility lawsuit." Ooh, okay, so that's the stick here. But with accessibility, there is a carrot too. There is a genuine positive outcome to engaging in accessibility best practices, to passing these accessibility tests. And so I need an expert. I've got some, at this point, I've got experience here in addressing some of these issues, but we need someone better than me, smarter than me, who could talk us through accessibility and the finer points of it. I want to start with, well, our guest today is Bet Hannon. Uh, Bet, tell me what you do. Why
Yeah,
are you our accessibility expert?
I lead an agency called Accessicart, where we focus on accessibility and e-commerce. And so we're a services agency, so we're not providing a tool. We're helping people figure out how to use the tools because sometimes that gets a little complicated, and then helping them with documentation and things like that, reporting. And so people come to us when they get sued, often. So yeah.
So define it for me. Like when we say, "Oh, this website is accessible or is not," what are we actually saying?
Yeah, well, the important thing to know is that no site is ever 100% accessible. If you were going to say this site is 100% accessible, it means that any person with any level of disability, with any combination of disabilities, would have no problems whatsoever on the site. I think it's just really logically impossible to do that. Now, can you make sure that a good portion of people can get there? Absolutely. Wave.webaim.org. That's a free tool. And I encourage folks to use that to test their own site. The important thing to know is that automated testing will only find about 30% of issues. So the rest of it comes down to some manual testing and looking at things. So, for instance, people who are blind and people who are mobility impaired may depend on keyboard navigation. So, if I'm totally paralyzed, I have an adaptive device, and those are really customized for people's disabilities, but they all come back to keyboard navigation. So you don't have to worry about accommodating a bajillion different devices. You just have to make sure things work for keyboard. We audited a site earlier in the year where the keyboard navigation was broken for getting into a variation. So you could get into the product to see the shirts, but you could never keyboard navigate to pick a red or a green or a blue one, so you could never put it in the cart, right? So
Oh,
any
jeez.
product on that site that had variations that you had to choose before you could put it in the cart, you couldn't purchase, right? And so, it's important to know, well, on the one hand, that's a barrier for people with disabilities. That's a legal problem. But on the other hand, that site's losing sales, right? When people run into that problem. So what does it mean to be accessible? Well, it means that um, the guidelines that are there are the website content accessibility guidelines. You can Google that. We say WCAG sometimes, WCAG, WCAG sometimes. And the current version that we're on is 2.2 AA. So you want to make sure that you go through and you're looking at trying to make your site meet these guidelines. But really, when folks are just starting out, if this is a totally new thing for you and you've never really thought about this before or done anything, there are about four things that you can start to do without even anybody like me helping you that could really begin to make your site more accessible. And I would say the majority of the cases that we see that start out with a complaint about what's called alt text, and that is
Alt text.
the description that's on an image. So persons who have visual disabilities often are using a tool called a screen reader. It's reading out loud to them, not only just the text on the page, but all a lot of information about what something is, menu item or an image or something. And then it reads out, if it's an image, it reads out the description that you've put in for that image. Now, one of the things that's important to know that you might find information out there more generically about adding alt text, but doing product alt images is a very specific kind of adding alt images. It's not just describing the image because the focus and intention for the context of that image is the product, right? So the product might be fleece vests, and you've got a photo of a bunch of young adults sitting around a campfire in their fleece, right? But it's not about what's happening in the campfire. It's about the description of the product that they're wearing, right? And so knowing that a specific image, a single image might have different alt text depending on how it's used in this site versus that site.
Yeah. So like it has to be, the alt text has to be for a person first. Describe the image with context as though you're describing it over the phone. And what I ended up doing was you have a store with 1,000 products, 10,000 products. It's almost impossible to do this. And so I wrote with the assistance of AI, vibe coded a Python script that connects to Shopify via the API, checks, hey, let's go find our active product listings, find the photos. Do they have alt text? Yes, ignore it. Let's just assume someone did it already. No, then send the image to ChatGPT Vision with context and a clear description of these are best practices for writing alt text. And then it returns pretty consistently good alt text. Now you still should review this
Exactly. You must still have a
because there
human
will
being look at those because sometimes it
you
is
do enough
just
of them,
way
there'll be
off
something
the.
weird in there.
So, okay, so we talked about alt text. That's one. Color contrast is another. So the Wave WebAIM tool will help you find color contrast. And that is when you have like a color, like a font color over a button color, and people have a hard time reading it. Right. So this is a problem for people with low vision. This is a problem for people who are colorblind. That's 9% of white men have a color blindness problem.
Well, my favorite is, of course, it's like, "Oh, you know what we should do? Dark gray text on a light gray background." And you
Yes.
know what? We want it to be real sophisticated, so a small, thin, fiddly font should do it. You're like, "Great. This website's really tough to read for people with normal vision,
Yes.
let
Yes.
alone someone who's vision impaired."
And exactly. Another one is link text. So
Okay.
WCAG says link text must be discernible. People who use screen readers will often go to a site and they will say to a page, and remember, just like everybody else, they have a purpose for going to first, they're searching for something, right? And so they may go to a page, it may load the page, and then they may tell the screen reader, read out loud to me all the links on this page. And what it does is it will use the link text, so not the HTTP, not the URL, but the link text that you've made into the link. And it'll just start at the top and it'll just read every link on the page. But if all they hear is click here, click here, click here, click here, it tells them nothing. So the link text, I mean, the great test is for you to just read the link text aloud. You don't know anything else about the context of all the other text around it or the images next to it or the button that's above it. You got to just read that link text as if it's all on its own. Click here for our fall collection, right? So they need to know where it's going to take them. And then finally, the last one is kind of similar, and that's the headings on the page. So people who have put together things, uh, you're using H1, and you have one and only one H1 on the page. That's the page title
This is one we see
all the
this
time.
creates a lot of problems for us, is
Yes,
headings.
yes. And
Yeah,
then
and,
and then you want to
I
do
love semantic HTML, but then,
yes,
like an app will change it or, "Hey, we
yes.
just put a theme block here, but, oh, well, it didn't
We
know,
didn't
and so the heading is
or
wrong."
we gave that theme block a heading, but now it appears on this page in a different context as that page, and so now, yeah, so it's a problem. So, but understanding how people use their screen reader to understands why it's important for people with disabilities. It's a strategy for reading through the content. The person will say, "Read me all the H2s on this page." And then when they get through they find the H2 that might be what they're looking for. Then they say, "Read all the H3s." And then you can go on down. Well, if you've skipped levels or you've messed stuff up or it's not there, then they can't figure out where to go. And so I think if you can start with those, those 4 items that we named: alt text, heading text, link text, and color, and you can just start building those into some processes. I think you need to think about accessibility as a kind of continuous improvement. It's never going to be a once check it off and done kind of thing, because your website is never that, right? You're always adding new products and you're changing things and you're adding a new add-on or app or feature to the site over time. And so it's always going to be some level of continuous improvement that you have to think about accessibility. Being able to show that you are making a good faith effort at that continuous improvement over time, that you're regularly testing and fixing things. It doesn't prevent you from being sued, but it gives you the leverage for the negotiation in the settlement.
Okay. I want to know where we could go to learn more about you.
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Beth Hannon. And you can go to accessicart.com and learn more about our services, what we can offer folks, and we would love to chat with folks.
Wonderful. I mean, on that note, we'll end it there. Beth Hannon, Accessicart, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kurt. Good to be with you.